Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, Part 2. Now, Cassim was certainly a greedy and selfish man who deserved no better than he got. But his wife was just as bad. She had spent all day imagining all the things she was going to spend their new wealth on. Her daydreams had been interrupted only once by a poor crippled beggar at the kitchen door, and she soon sent him away with a flea in his ear. "Get away, you filthy vagabond," she shouted, "or I'll call the police. These are hard enough times for honest folk, without having to deal with idle spongers like you." For whatever she intended to do with the thieves' treasure, it was certain none of it was going to be given away. When Cassim failed to come home with his mules laden with gold, she began to worry. At last she could bear it no more, and went to Ali Baba's house to see if he knew what had become of Cassim. They waited all night, and in the morning, when Cassim had still not come, she wielded Ali Baba into going out into the forest to search for him. Ali Baba went out with his 3 donkeys, fully expecting to run into his brother on the way, but he found no sign of him. He arrived at the rock, and gathering up all his courage, said quietly, "Open, sesame." The doorway opened, and there, inside, was Cassim, nearly cut up into 6 pieces. Ali Baba was nearly too sick at the sight to remember to gather up some more coins, but not quite. So he loaded his brother's remains onto one of the donkeys, and some more booty onto the other 2, and went back by the way he had come. Ali Baba left the 2 treasure-laden donkeys at his own house, but carried on with the other to Cassim's house. There he was met by the resourceful servant girl, Morgiana. He showed her the terrible fate that had met Cassim, and said, "We must keep this quiet. Pretend your master is ill, and go to the druggist today and tomorrow, asking for medicines. On the 3rd day, we can announce his death. But if we are to make sure that those thieves never find out about us, we must be certain there is no talk in the city about the way in which my brother was butchered." Morgiana said, "Leave it to me." So Ali Baba made his way into the house to tell his brother's widow the bad news. She wept and wailed and flung herself on the floor, all the while making sure that Ali Baba, who was now the richest man in the city, saw how fetching her eyes welled with tears. "Who will look after me now?" she cried. "Must I live all alone and unprotected?" Ali Baba seemed completely taken in by this show of grief. "I will look after you," he said, "for you are my brother's wife. My wife and I will move in with you, so you will not be alone." Meanwhile, Morgiana, the servant girl, had been busy. She had visited the druggist to buy medicines, and then she had gone to the weather-beaten old tailor, Baba Mustafa. She went into his shop and handed him a gold coin and said, "Blindfold your eyes." Then she gave him another gold coin and said, "Follow me." When they arrived back at Cassim's house, she took him to the corpse. She gave him another gold coin and said, "Sew up this body as if it were new." Lastly, she gave him a 4th gold coin, saying, "Sew a shroud for the body and leave." And all this Baba Mustafa did, wondering greatly. On the 3rd day, Cassim's funeral was held. Morgiana had been so clever, no one suspected anything. To be continued.